Hey guys, it's Danny the Medic. Welcome to my channel. Now today we're going to go visit the floater doctor down in Arlington, Texas. Now, what the floater doctor does is that he saps the floaters in your eyes. Terrific, right? So, I have eye floaters. It's like I had them forever, ever since I was a kid. But as people get older, they tend to get worse. So it's gotten to the point where I see these like black spots floating around in my vision, and it's quite distracting. I also see little hazy, foggy clouds floating around. Okay, now I've been to eye doctors here back in New York. Okay, now I went. I told the doctor, I got these floaters. They gotten worse, right? So they do the due diligence and then make sure my retina's fine and everything. And then I said, okay, so what can you do about the floaters? And they're like, nothing. Forget about it. I'm like, what do you mean forget about it? So oh, your brain will adapt, or they'll go away on their own. They get better over time, or you won't notice it after a while. I'm just like, what the hell are you talking about? So no, no. Lucky I found a floater doctor. Okay, so I'm not going to get too technical about it because I'll link his channel below where you can see all the technical babble about the, laser and whatever. Okay, so it's very basic. Shoots a laser in your eyeball. Hopefully it hits the floater, and poof, floater's gone. Hopefully. So that's what I'm here for. So I don't know. I'm in a motel down the street from where his office is, and we're gonna take a walk over there and go visit the floater doctor. I'm so excited. I really hope this works out for me because, these floaters are killing me here. They're killing me. I'm just like I'm like swatting mosquitoes that don't exist, and people looking at me like, dude, he's our medic. What the hell? What's he doing? He's high on drugs. But that's besides the point. Okay, floater doctor. Let's go. Damn it. Should have thought this through. Come on. Come on. Damn it, there's two of them. This is not easy, guys. Subscribe. Gotta come in. Oh. Well, I'm telling you, it's like going up the mountain to see a guru. You gotta earn it. You gotta earn it. All right. Room 225 it is. Let's see. Here we go. Wow, this is a nice building. I think he's charging too much. Oh, yeah, I am. Here it is. How come it doesn't say the floater doctor? Who's this James X. Johnson? Anyway, let's see if there is such a thing as a floater doctor inside. And here I go again with my cup. Push. Okay, got it. Hello? Oh yeah, hi. You must be the floater doctor. Hi, how are you? How are you? I know. Getting the doors open was like crazy today. I had to struggle.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. Come on,
Nice
have
to
a
meet
seat right over here.
Oh, thank you. All right, guys, I'm here at the floater doctor, and there's a form to fill out, including fees and stuff. Now, over here on the second page, along with all the issues, he wants you to draw the floaters as you see them. So that might take me a while. So I'm going to draw these, and I will show you what I see. As I'm filling out this form, I keep hearing this jungle sounds. Interesting choice. At least it's not copyright music ruining my video. Pretty much so. Well, this is what I can come up with. It's really hard to do.
The thing that I'm worried about is, like, if you record the consultation, it's kind of like giving away the secret sauce. It's giving away the 11 herbs. No,
just don't say anything, about the cilantro or anything.
Yeah, all the secret 11 herbs and spices. No, it's this is a very personalized process that people go through. Mm-hmm. And in fact, interesting because that's just the patient that was just here is from Missouri, and he went to a local doctor there, who is like one of those guys that's just like really successful. He has a 8 or 9 story building. His name, across the top there. He sponsors the local the hockey team. His name on the arena. I mean, this is like one of these really, really successful businessmen, and good for them. I know the type, and they just are good businessmen. And so he had his first treatment with this doctor, and he said they have all the laser patients kind of crammed into one afternoon on Friday. And he says, he kind of sweeps in and he does his treatment, does another one, doesn't have them all lined up. And I'm like, well, like lined up? Like, how many is he doing? He said he had like 12 patients there in the waiting area. And I'm like, crickets out there, And I'm like, I have a very different approach to this, So he has 4 or 5 gals, putting the drops in and getting people all prepped and signing the paperwork. So he just has sort of a process. I mean, he has all crammed into one afternoon. Mm-hmm. So the patient described his experience. And he said, first of all, it was paid for by insurance, or at least he was billing insurance. I'm not sure if insurance paid very much out of it, but because oftentimes they don't. So he has an insurance-based practice. Of course, he has a big practice. He does all this other stuff as well, cataract surgery, the whole thing. And he came in and sat down and fired like 30 or 40 shots. Now, to the uninitiated, you might say, like, well, what does that mean? Like, I have no point of reference to that. And I'll tell you.
That's barely anything.
It is homeopathic. It is essentially nothing. And the patient said, and I didn't notice any difference. And I'm thinking to myself, well, of course you didn't notice any difference. 30 or 40 shots is like, I'm not even getting warmed up at 30 or 40 shots. So not knowing what to expect, I went through the whole process, the consultation, get him dilated. Then I take a look in there and I'm like, you've got a big floater. Like, it is a big floater. And his floater was a large floater, but it'd drop out of the way. So when I first looked in there and I'm looking around, I'm thinking to myself, I don't see anything. Like, I don't see anything. Then I look down and there's this big, heavy, dense cloud kind of sitting down below. So there are times when he has pretty good clear vision until he moves his head or moves his eye, and this thing would come up there and literally block his entire vision for several 10, 12 seconds or so until it kind of moves out of the way. So there's some interesting comments I have about that, which is, well, a couple of his doctors didn't even see the floater. And truth be told, I didn't see it for the first 10 seconds, 15 seconds or so until I asked him to move his eyes, and then this big thing came up and blocked his vision. So, and he had a massive floater. And 30 or 40 shots is not going to do anything for this. And I have to say, there was a little pinch of green envy and jealousy of, like, this guy who's not a floater doctor has patients lined up, his entire afternoon, and yet he's not delivering the goods. He's not delivering value for these patients. Insurance is getting billed. Patient didn't have to pay any copay, so, like, patient isn't bitterly complaining about the process, and no harm was done. But on the other hand, patient didn't get results. So, anyways, I did my first treatment on him yesterday, and he came back today, big smiles, and he's like, it's 60% better, which is a good start. No, I'm sorry, it was more like 50%. 50% better, which is a very reasonable start considering, I would in the chart say this is overwhelming. There's an overwhelming amount of material in there. Like it's, and he asked me the question, like, how do I compare to the others? And that's also a complex question because one of my sayings is floaters don't have to be bad to be bothersome. They just have to be bothersome, right? So some of the younger patients who have just a tiny, tiny couple little threads, they'll tell you it's a 10 out of 10 bothersomeness, and that's true for their experience. But what I can say is, over the 15 years, I've looked in a lot of eyes, and I can say, regardless of how bothersome these floaters can be to that individual, I can look at it and say, how much stuff is present? Like how big, how much mass material of collagen is present? And he's easily in the top 5% or so of what I typically see, of what I see. So he had a lot of stuff in there. It just needed an aggressive treatment. And I ended up doing about, I don't know, 1,100, 1,200 shots yesterday, and did another 1,000 today. So, and it really looked good today. I mean, like, it looked a lot better, and I'll see him again tomorrow. So I'm really excited and happy for him, and very satisfied with what I can deliver for that. But it just is, there's some lessons to be learned there. And it kind of goes back to, like one of my videos, which was choose carefully. This is not a cookie cutter, software-driven, algorithm-driven process. It's very, very individualized, and experience, I believe, just really, really matters. So, like I said, there's a little bit of sort of jealousy, like he's got all these patients lined up, but then this experience with this patient and the feedback that I've gotten from him and him describing this other experience is just sort of an affirmation of like, yeah, I'm doing something different, And I'm not saying anything bad about that doctor. I certainly wouldn't mention him by name, but it just kind of goes to the fact that, you're coming all the way from New York. Like, you could probably find somebody with a YAG laser closer. You certainly could if you haven't already. You can find somebody with a YAG laser, but man, there's just a real difference. And I think it just kind of comes to the doctors need to know their skill level and their limitations. Like, you wouldn't want me managing your cataract surgery. I haven't done cataract surgery in 18 years. I wouldn't even try it. I just don't have that skill set anymore. But there's a lot going on with this part of the conversation. But the company that makes the laser is promoting a lot of people as floater treatment doctors. Or no, they're selling their laser as a floater treatment laser, and my response to that is, no, the laser doesn't treat floaters, the doctor treats floaters, and that's where you just have to kind of do your due diligence, and whatever it was that brought you to me, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Hopefully we can do something for you, positive. But there's a lot of sort of interesting sort of dynamics in the process, and the more that other people are treating floaters, the more stories like that I get from them. So. I don't know what to say. It's an interesting process.
One thing for sure is that you should not feel envious. I know you feel it anyway, but you got to think about it. It's that you lead your life according to what you hold as valuable.
True. Absolutely true.
So people can open up a McDonald's and have billions served, make oodles of money, but if you care about cooking and flavor and everything,
and not just that is health, For instance, I have a patient of mine, super nice guy. I've actually played some tennis with him, local guy, and he owns a fast food mini mart, And he said, I guess there was at some point sort of an ethical dilemma. He said, I actually tried to sell healthy foods, like a salad bar and healthier options, fruits and stuff like that.
And no one bought it.
Nobody would buy it.
No one bought it.
So then, so it kind of comes down to the question of like, well, he tried and he offered and he tried to do the right thing, and people didn't want the right thing, and so they'll continue to buy the hot Cheetos and the Dr. Pepper is very popular here in Texas, and the Dr. Pepper and the Coca-Colas and stuff like that.
Hey guys, it's me, chiming in from post-production. Now I just want you to know that what he's saying is 100% true, because I went to the Walmart and I got all this like unhealthy stuff because I love it so much.
I get to enjoy a lot of things with my practice. I get to enjoy a lengthy interaction with my patients. I get to know them on a almost kind of personal level in a way. I have a great satisfaction with what I do. I can hold my head up proudly, and I know that I'm serving others, and there's no shame in that. And and also there's a sort of a pioneering aspect to what I'm doing, because I'm one of just a few doing this. But there's also, interestingly enough, kind of I get to enjoy sort of like there's a rebellious nature in a way to what I do, because I'm doing something that the other doctors say doesn't exist. You can't do it. You shouldn't do that. It's like, well, I've been doing it for 15 years and I've got a pretty good track record with it. So apparently it can be done. It's just not quite mainstream. So as you walk in with your camera and you kind of, well, it's a small office. It's not your typical office. I don't have, Susie behind the front desk, and I don't have, Ashley and Karen and running around doing all these kinds of things. It's me. I walk in, I meet and greet you. It's you and me, and it will be for the next hour and a half or so.
Did you used to have Susie, Ashley, and Karen?
No, it's always been this way.
Oh,
it's always been this
I
way.
wonder why the choice of those particular names is like. Yeah, I had to fire them 3 years ago.
There's no Susie, there's no Ashley, there's no.
Chiming in again from post-production. Now, he said Susie behind the desk, Ashley and Karen running around doing stuff. Very specific, okay? Now, I just want to say, Florida doctor, if you're watching, I am not looking into it. Please don't come kill me and bury me next to Susie, Ashley, and Karen. Okay? I'm not looking into it. Nope. Don't care. I just want my floaters treated, and that's it. Don't care about missing persons, posters. No, no, nope, nope. I want to live. I want to live. Okay, back to the video.
I, when I first started treating floaters, I went to a small space and just kind of dedicated to that. And it is a formula that works well for me. Like personally, I don't like being the boss. Like I don't like asking or telling people what to do. I did that when I had opened a LASIK practice briefly, and I kind of realized like I'm a terrible employer. Not because I'm a mean ogre and been very demanding. It's like I can't ask them to do anything. I'd be like, you guys go ahead and go home. I'll empty the trash and I'll finish the filing because I can. Like, how can you ask somebody to do something if you can do it yourself? That's just a hang up on my part. So, I mean, I guess I could learn those skills if I had to, but I'm fine with doing my website and doing the emails and doing the conversations and doing all this, and it works. It works for me, and that's just it's a good fit for my personality. And so I see 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 patients in a day rather than 20, 30, or 40. But I don't have a soul-crushing overhead. I don't have the stress of HR issues and all the things that kind of go with that. I come to work and I kind of know how it's going to go down. I'm going to meet and greet either a new patient or an existing patient. We're going to evaluate. We're going to determine if you're a candidate, if you're not. If you are, we have the laser right here ready for you. And if you're not a candidate, well then we say our goodbyes and say it was nice and that's kind of cool. That way I can kind of focus on what I want to do and what I enjoy doing and not have to deal so much with the other aspects of a bigger practice or having to battle the insurance companies and all that kind of stuff. So I really feel fortunate that I've stumbled into this formula that just works for me. I'm able to spend a lot of time with you and with everybody else because, again, I don't have 30, 40, 50 patients lined up. So, like, while you're here, I'm focused entirely on you. You'll find it's a pretty different experience than when you go to your typical medical practice, right?
But why Arlington?
Why not? Yeah, so I was in Southern California for about, for a long, long time, but that practice was there for about 15 years or so. And it was really not chasing after more money or better location necessarily. It was really just more personal. Like I was looking to buy a home. I was several years out of a long divorce and kind of recovering financially, recovering from all that stuff that goes along with a messy, messy divorce. And I was looking for buying a home, and I was just like, in Southern California, the prices are ridiculously overpriced. You get very little value for your money, and even though everybody else is doing that, it's like now that I have a better understanding of my value system and how I want to go forward with my life, I don't want to get into that trap again. That was a problem with the marriages, living above your means, right? And so I started looking around in different areas originally just for investment properties and stuff, and I started looking at some neighborhoods, and I'm like, there's actually some neighborhoods out here that I would like to live in. And I found some mid-century modern homes, kind of in the architectural style and era. And again, compared to Southern California, or maybe compared to New York, it just seemed like really affordable, like a lot of value for your money. And it was just a kind of point in my life where I'm like, well, now that I'm the architect of my own life, I can do whatever I want. I'm going to go after value instead of just what everybody else is doing. And decided to just pick up my practice and drop it here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and not look back. And so it's actually been a good move. Of course, starting at my age, starting your practice over and your life over in a new area, it's a little daunting. It's kind of, and during a worldwide pandemic, it wasn't necessarily I didn't expect to hit the ground and make more money, and this last year was a little slow, of course, but that's okay. But living within your means, I found a house that has this great character and architectural style, so I'm very happy with that. So all in all, it's been a good move. So it could have been Arlington, it could have been Kansas City, it could have been Salt Lake City, it could have been Denver, it could have been really sort of anywhere. But here's where I chose, and here I am. So, but also, Dallas-Fort Worth has two major airports, and so it is kind of central to the country. So I did consider that. Would it be easier for people from the East Coast to get to me and the Midwest and all that kind of stuff? So kind of finding a central location was definitely part of the consideration.
Yes. I figured that has a lot to do with
Yeah.
it because when I read it, it's like, oh, California, that flight. Oh, the long flight.
Oh,
Yeah.
that said, I have a lot of Californians that I left, and they're very unhappy with me. I mean, 2/3 of my practice was from California residents. So it was knowingly kind of stepping away from some of those patients, and the reality is I'm trying to actually get rid of patients. The idea is to treat them to satisfaction, and get rid of them. I don't, it's not to keep pulling them in.
All right, yes, me again from post production. Now, I have to be honest. When I was sitting there, and he said he was like getting rid of patients, I was thinking they met the same fate as Susie, Ashley, and Karen. But I don't know, man. I just watched the entire season of Dexter New Blood. So don't mind me. I'm not looking into any of it.
Just where come back for your annual exam. But the reality is, some people do come back for touch-up. There is my version of Pareto's law. Pareto's law is the 80-20 rule. So in business and in nature, things are sort of described in 80%, 20%. And in my version of it, I feel like I spend about 80% of my time at the laser still trying to get that last 20%. So part of my management of expectations is to say, what if I can only get 75, 80% improved? I may not, you get sort of diminishing returns. You get a big improvement, moderate improvement, and sometimes you start kind of hovering around after 80% improved. You still have that last little 20%. Some of that stuff you just can't get. So I do try to sort of manage that expectation as, the goal of this treatment series, if you're even a candidate, is to get you a lot better. I won't say to get you above 50% or 75% or 90%. The goal is to get it a lot better because I never know what's going to walk through the door. Like, I don't know how complex it's going to be, how challenging it might be with previous refractive surgery or implant lenses or small pupils. Like, you just never know what's going to walk through the door. So that's why I'm very cautious about sort of setting hard expectations. The goal is to get it a lot better to where the patient says, I could live with this. Like, this is a lot better. And what you can't control for and you have no control for is the patient's personality too. Like a lot of my patients tend to be engineers, entrepreneurs, professionals, doctors and attorneys, people who process a lot of visual information, but also are kind of detail-oriented, problem-solving type of personalities. That's why they're successful with what they do, but that also is a personality type that doesn't do very well with floaters, And so they go to their local doctor. The doctor says, oh, the good news is your retina is healthy, nothing to worry about, it's just floaters, just live with it. And they're like, well, thank you, doctor. And then they go home and they get on Google and they're like, eye floater treatment, whatever terms people search for. And then they find me, and then they go onto my website, and they start watching the YouTube channel and stuff like that. And I try to put a lot of information out there, so that at the comfort of your home, before just flying and coming to see me, you can kind of do your research. You can learn everything about. I try to put everything on my website. Fees, insurance policies, expectations, what to expect of this visit. Everything I possibly can to try to answer those questions in advance. But like I said, I can't control for the personality type. So I do try to sort of manage those expectations. But again, a lot of people keep coming back trying to chase after that last 20%. And as long as it's safe to do so, I don't mind trying. But sometimes you just get to a sort of a practical endpoint. It's not a hard endpoint. It's just like, what, we're just not gaining anything more with more treatment. And so maybe this is just a practical endpoint of treatment. So, but in that sense, I really, most of the time, I kind of let the patient lead the dance. I don't say, we're done here, or I can't do anymore. Usually you can. It's just, is it practical? Is it cost effective? Does it make sense? And so in that sense, it's kind of a partnership of the decision. If we get to a point of satisfaction and you go home and say, yeah, this is good enough, you don't need to come back. If you're like, it's better, but boy, if you could just get that one thing, people will fly back and come and see me. So I get that it's inconvenient. I get that it's expensive. I get the problems of the whole thing. I've been aware of it for 15 years. But it is what it is, as the kids say. You know, it is what it is. And this is the best we have for now, short of a vitrectomy, which is a whole other conversation.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was considering that, but then I said, maybe I'll try this first. Yeah.
Right. So I saw that you draw your floaters here. Tell me a little bit more about what this looks like to you. I mean, you kind of have drawn some different sort of items here.
All right. So basically, away from modern technology and the modern world, the floaters don't bother me. Like if I'm in the forest or in natural light and things like that, it's like when I get to the modern world with these computer screens and artificial lights, it just gets into my eyes, and then I see things, right? The fuzzy ones over here are just like clouds of haze that like gets into my field of vision, and it just makes things blurry. Then I have to just like shake my head, until they float away for a little bit. I do what I have to do, and then it comes back again. Then as for the black dots, I'll see them floating around, and then I would think that it's a mosquito or something, and then it will attract my attention because I have a lot of mosquitoes issues and back in New York, and I hate mosquitoes, and it's probably psychological where if I see a little black dot, most people wouldn't be bothered, but I see it, I go, and I look, and then it's not, it was a floater again, and then it just like floats around because they float around. Okay, if it's just like a static dot, it'll be a different story, but it floats around like a mosquito or something coming at me. It's getting me. So yeah, very distracting stuff.
You've had some eye examinations, I presume.
Yeah.
And at least mention, hopefully, at least mention the floaters when you've had the eye examination when you were dilated and they took a look in there. Did you get a sense, A, that the doctor actually saw something, and then B, what did they say and how did they describe what they saw?
Well, I went to the ophthalmologist back in New York. Saw one of them, can't remember the name, and I told him, I said, "Oh, my floaters have gotten worse." He goes, "Oh, let me see." Looked inside. And said, "You have healthy eyes." I said, "Well, what about the floaters?" He says, "You'll get used to it. It will go away on its own. I mean, is there anything you can do with it?" "No, there's nothing that can be done about it. It's natural." All the usual BS.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, this is not right. He says, "Well, come back after several months. If they don't improve." I never went back and just, forget about it.
Yeah, and that's very typical. Like I hear that from almost everybody, some version or some variant of that, which is, well, the good news is that your eye's healthy, there's no retinal hole, tear, detachment problem. They either see the floaters or they don't see the floaters, but they don't comment very much on it. And when I've had a chance to look at the doctor's notes, and when the patient gets a copy and brings them to me, usually it just says floaters or PVD or something like that. So they're not really describing them, they're not really mapping them out, there's really no expectation that they would do so. And again, the other usual platitudes are, give it time, it might drop out of the way, your brain will get used to it, and come back again for a routine examination, and we'll take a look at it again. Not that they have any other plans for you, it's just, come back in 6 months or a year or so. And that's how it goes down, and that's really, really common. And I am cautious not to criticize those doctors because it's not that they lack compassion, that they're straying from the standard of care. In fact, that kind of is the standard of care. That is the usual way it goes down, and that's the way that we're taught. That's and when I actually think back prior to treating floaters, when I was doing general ophthalmology, like I probably had the same mindset and same phrases. I probably said the exact same thing. Sorry, So it wasn't like I've always been like when I was going to medical school, it's like, if I could just specialize in treating floaters, like that never crossed my mind. When I was doing general ophthalmology, I'm sure it was the same thing. Caring, empathetic, but floaters are just not an interest because, here's maybe a cynical explanation. And you can look at the example of refractive surgery. Prior to modern refractive surgery, there was no refractive surgery. I mean,
Hey, it's me from post-production again. Now, just so I can put this in here so that for people who don't know,
the next few minutes will make sense. Refractive surgery is like LASIK, things like that to, you know, help people see better. Yeah. All right, back to the video.
Refractive surgery, there was no refractive surgery. I mean, you basically had glasses, you had contact lenses, and of course cataract surgery, which can be considered a form of refractive surgery, right? So glasses and contact lenses, that's how you took care of nearsightedness and farsightedness and astigmatism, and everybody was fine with that until this Russian doctor came along and said, hey, I accidentally stumbled across a technique where you make these radial incisions in the cornea, radial keratotomy, and you can change the shape of the cornea. And you can flatten the cornea. And you can take a person who's nearsighted and you can get them reasonably close, with very low expectations, but reasonably close to getting them out of glasses. And now, you might say, well, you're putting scars in the eyes, you're creating irregularities, irregular astigmatism, and if your endpoint is getting to driving vision, which is 20/40 or better in just one eye, that's a pretty low standard. Whereas with glasses and contact lenses, you might get them to 20/15, corrected vision, fantastic. But if you're making these scars and incisions in the eye and only get them to 20/40, it's like, that might be actually making things worse. And glare and halos and all these kind of weird visual photopsias and things that are going along with that. You might say that, why would you do that if you're making things worse? Well, let's introduce money, right? So maybe we can explain a lot of things when you follow the money trail. Not only can you make radial incisions, but then you can collect $2,500 per eye on the way out. And all of a sudden the doctor's like, radial keratotomy, that's the way to go. Everybody's a candidate. And then when people started realizing how much money, the potential, in refractive surgery, they said, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this. And then they started looking at excimer lasers that were used to etch silicon chips in the computer business, and started using that laser. And they said, well, it's still kind of primitive. And the healing is slow with PRK. How about we do LASIK and create a flap? And you just sort of get these generational quantum improvements with technology. But it's all driven by money, right? So, are we there with treating floaters? No. And maybe that in part explains why nobody's interested in treating floaters is the money trail isn't there yet. We don't have a plug-and-play, software-driven, algorithm-based treatment for floaters. Every shot that I fire of the laser is a new decision. You fire the laser and the floaters move and change, and you're like, okay, what do I do? Do I chase after this? Do I leave that alone? Do I chase after this? Should I treat that? Should I not treat that? Let me follow this one along. And then I fire the laser and everything changes again. And so you're making decisions. Now, I can do that a lot faster. Boom, 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 boom. So, I've kind of got it in my muscle memory, and I've kind of got it in my own little internal algorithm. But the thing is, unlike LASIK, which is a pre-planned treatment, the machines do the measurements, goes to a little black box, and the black box spits out a formula that says you're going to remove this much here and less here and more here, and you're going to kind of customize that treatment, and it'll follow the eye with the little micro movements that it does. But it's basically pre-planned, and it's all been coded, software driven. This is still a very manual technique, and as I say, there's just no substitute for doing a ton of treatments. You just have, so you can't just buy the laser and start treating floaters. I mean, you can fire the laser, but boy, I think it really takes hundreds of thousands of shots of the laser to even sort of get comfortable, maybe competent. But I think you really have to do millions. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years. This is all I do, and I have, I don't know, 10 to 15 million shots on my laser cumulatively. And there are still times where I'm like banging my head against the wall, just saying, this is so hard. Like, this is so challenging. Like, it's a lot more complex than I thought, or a lot more difficult than I thought. Then if I'm feeling that way, like, how is it if you're just kind of starting off, firing 30 or 40 shots? I mean, there's just no comparison. So we're not really ready for prime time. This really is not it can't just be scaled up until we come up with better technology and maybe some software-driven controls. Something that can gauge where you're absolutely located in space and keeping it as X number of millimeters away from the retina and X millimeters away from the lens, and live scanning that, some sort of three-dimensional. I mean, there are some really nice improvements that could be made, but again, we're not there where the companies sort of see the potential yet.
I think that could also be because a lot of people don't know about floaters. they have them, but they don't know that you know.
Yeah. Well, again, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like how does technology advance? Is it from the patients complaining about it, and the doctors finally say, "Boy, I wish there was something we could do about this." You know, is it from the top down, some sort of discovery, and you come up with a better laser and trickle that down to the doctors, sort of like refractive surgery? You know, now we have a way of treating it. It trickles down to the doctors, and the doctor's like, "Well, yeah, that's great because I can make money off this too." You know, does it come from the top down or from the bottom up? Maybe it's from both and kind of meets in the middle. But if you are the prototypical floater sufferer and you go to your trusted local doctor who's very competent, you know, has his own building and is very successful, and if that doctor says nothing can be done, most people probably stop there. Or when they go to the second doctor, or you know, that doctor says, well, you know, let me send you to the retina specialist. Let's just pass the buck. You know, let me send you to the retina guy. And you go to that person, and they say, well, you know, can't do anything for this. You know, I wouldn't do a vitrectomy, no way. And so you've gone to two good doctors, you know, good reputation in the local area, and they say nothing can be done. Most people, it stops right there. They don't then keep, you know, looking to go on Google. Why would you go on Google? My two trusted doctors have said nothing can be done. So I think it kind of just stops right there. And I think that's why many or most of my patients tend to be, again, that sort of problem-solving type of personality. Engineers, entrepreneurs, professionals, because they are the type that says, you know, I'm just going to do a little research. I'm going to get on Google. I'm going to go on YouTube or whatever. I'm going to see if there's something else out there. And that's how they discover me, and that's how we start the conversation and start that engagement. So yeah, I really feel like I should have a lot of patients waiting out the door because many of them are just being kind of squelched right there in the doctor's office and say nothing can be done. And you can live with them. You know, you have been, as you know, you can live with them. You can live with a lot of stuff. You may not be happy about it. You may not be completely satisfied with the quality of your vision and quality of your life, but you can live with it. And most people, that's by default how most people manage their floaters, which is do nothing. And they live with them. And it's interesting, you know, I would not be surprised if, you know, in your conversations with your friends, colleagues, cohorts, or even just on the plane, oh, what are you going to Texas for? Well, I'm going to go see a doctor, see if he can treat my eye floaters. I didn't know anything. I was told nothing could be done, you know. And then that conversation goes on and goes on. And I think that's really how my practice grows, is organically. It's not because I'm driving around or having Susie drive around and having Susie drive around and drop off bagels and brochures to the different doctor's offices. It's somebody who has suffered them, done their own research, on their own dime, traveled out here, took that risk, you know, trusted me with the treatment, and has had good results. And they go out, and I don't have to ask them to evangelize or proselytize to me. They want to. Like, they want other people to know about it. Well, you're doing a video. You're going to do a video about this, you know. And that's how the word gets out there. And that is just more legitimate than me hiring a PR firm and going on some TV show or you know, driving around with a bunch of bagels to the different offices, you know, or whatever people, you know, bagels and little pins with, you know, the floater doctor on them and say, you know, Dr. Johnson's here in town and he does this thing. You know, I think just people having had that personal experience with it, they want to tell other people about it, and that's a really solid way to grow. It's a natural and organic way to grow your practice.
It's the best way.
The best way, yeah, for the long term. For the long term,
because you can't replicate yourself. You can't make a clone of yourself and expand your business of franchises or anything like that. You're you. You shouldn't have, you know, that type of advertising going on, because there's a limit about how much you can do and how much time you got.
Exactly. There truly is a limit to what I can do, and I mean, you could conceivably open up, you know, floater doctor franchises and hire some younger doctors and kind of train them, but I don't feel comfortable with that.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. I agree. No. It's not the same. This is not something that you can just go to a 2 or 3 day conference and have some little pig eye or some little artificial acrylic eye that you can sort of practice on and say, hey, I can do this. You know, I mean, like I said, there's just no substitute for doing a ton of this, and I'm still on the learning curve. You know. The first couple years is the steepest part of your learning curve, but I still feel like, you know, I learn a little bit from each treatment that I do. There are times where I'm like, oh, I I am the best in the world at this. And there are times where I'm like, this is so hard. But that it's a good dynamic. It kind of balances you out and kind of humbles you at times, where you're like, okay, despite my best effort, the one tool that I have in my toolbox just may not be a good tool for this particular person. Maybe the vitrectomy is the way to go, And so, speaking of vitrectomy, I don't look at the vitrectomy as my direct competitor. I kind of look at it as further down the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at a spectrum of treatment, and that spectrum can include both risk and invasiveness, results for sure. I look at the vitrectomy as further down the spectrum. It has the potential for getting 100% of everything, for sure, because they're going in and generally removing 100% of everything, replacing that vitreous with saline. So it's definitive, it is curative, it is the gold standard treatment, but it has its problems, it has its risks, particularly with cataracts, developing cataracts or promoting cataracts, and it, you can get infection, it's a breach of the eye's defenses. So it has its problems, but I'll still recommend it now and then. There'll be sometimes where I'll look in someone's eye, I'm just like, there is so much going on here that this is way more than I can chew. This is just...
About vitrectomy, is it true that after it's done, people see differently, like things are more blue, or I heard things like that? Have you heard anything about that?
Not as much as with cataracts. Like when people develop cataracts, the lens in the eye will have a sort of a yellowish amber hue to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like looking through amber sunglasses, right?
Okay.
So your eye will kind of adjust to that and think that that's kind of color corrected. As soon as you take those glasses off, the blues are more vibrant. In fact, they used to call some of those glasses were called blue blockers, right? They would block that
Mm-hmm.
blue frequency. So when you take those off, the blues and the purples and that range of the frequency is more intense. That's something that people notice much more with cataract surgery, especially when they've had one eye done and not the other one. They're like, oh, those blues are more brilliant. With the vitrectomy, probably not so much, not predictably like that. But there's more to that story. Like, if somebody's had a true posterior vitreous detachment, no, let me back up. Bigger picture here. So most people will think of vision or testing for vision as visual acuity, right? Snellen chart visual acuity. I'm not sure if this shows up on the camera, but the visual acuity chart up here uses.
Let me show the people
okay.
your little Snellen over there.
All right, let me bump that up.
Oh, good, we're still rolling.
Yeah. So
there we go.
So these
This thing
letters are designed for instance, there's kind of a formula for this, but the thickness of this part of the letter should be the same as this thickness, the same as this thickness, the same. So there's kind of a formula for how the letters are supposed to be designed. You just can't put Comic Sans up there and check someone's vision.
Ah.
You should never be using Comic Sans anyways. That's a different story. But
Yes, I'm a Helvetica kind of guy.
oh yeah, there you go,
Yeah.
classic. I'm a Liberation Sans guy. So most people are like, oh, what's your vision? Oh, it's 20/20, it's 2400, it's 20/15, and that's kind of the imperial version of checking visual acuity. But if you think about it, if you're sitting here and you're looking in a mirror, those letters
It's
are
in the mirror too.
yeah,
Look at that.
those letters are. That's why those are backwards.
Ah.
Those letters are the equivalent of 20 feet away. They're sized and they're calibrated a certain way. So what we're actually doing is just checking a very small angle of your vision with nearly 100% contrast. As best I can do with a monitor here, it's 100% black against 100% white. And we're checking a very small part of your vision. But it does measure the quality of the optics, your resolution with the optics, but it also kind of indirectly measures the health of the retina. So if you have bad optics, you may not be able to see that. But also if you have a bad retina, you may not be able to see that as well. It's kind of like with the camera. If you have a poor quality lens, you can only get so much focus on it. But if you have a bad sensor, equally you're going to have a bad picture. So it doesn't tell you everything, but it kind of gets you in the ballpark. Or in other words, it's if you're able to resolve 20/20, 20/15, it says, well, at least your optics are pretty good, and the presumed health of your retina is pretty good. That's all we can really say. But that doesn't tell us anything about peripheral vision. It doesn't tell us anything about color vision. It doesn't tell us anything. You could have 20/20 vision and 20/20 vision, but you could have double vision. So although the resolution is good here, the eyes are not coordinating well together. Or you could have 20/20 vision with a ghost image off to the side. If you kind of ignore the glare and the halo and the streaks and the things coming off that, you can still read 20/20 vision. That doesn't mean that you have clear, comfortable vision. That just means that you can sort of resolve that 20/20 vision. So there is actually another quality of vision that's rarely ever measured except as part of studies, and that's contrast sensitivity, right? So if I don't have it on here, but if I put, if these letters were 50% gray, done in Photoshop or whatever, 50% gray against a 45% gray background, we've really significantly reduced the contrast, okay? Now, with cataracts, with maybe some corneal scarring, or with floaters, you can actually measure that if somebody's had a posterior vitreous detachment, I don't know if you have or not, but if somebody's had a posterior vitreous detachment, their measured contrast sensitivity can decline on average about 50%.
Ooh.
Okay, so if somebody has a lot of stuff kind of swirling around in there, and they're like, yeah, I know I can see 20/20, but it's not crisp, it's not clear, it's dynamic, it's shifting, it's just not great. That could be something related to the floaters. And so if somebody has a vitrectomy and they remove all of that, all of those membranes and all that sort of hazy, swirly stuff in there, the quality of vision, maybe not the visual acuity as measured on the chart there, but the quality of visions can certainly improve with that. So there are some advantages to a vitrectomy, but like I say, it's kind of further down the spectrum. So my kind of philosophy with this is not to position myself as, a direct competitor with the vitrectomy. I say, we sort of have a spectrum of treatments. I should do it this way. We have a spectrum of treatments, but you can do nothing, and that's what you've been doing. But we can also expect no improvement with that. So can you live with it? I guess you can. Most people do. But there's no expectation of improvement. And then at the far end of that spectrum is nearly 100%, or as close to 100%, or pretty darn close to 100%, and that's the vitrectomy with its consequences and some of the risks that go along with that. So the laser sort of fills that gap. That's a pretty big gap to fill. And I'm not satisfied down here at the lower end, like I was saying earlier. It's like I'm a little more satisfied when we get kind of above the 50% plus and doing better than that. So again, like I said, I don't try to position myself as a direct competitor. I think there are times where initially I might recommend a vitrectomy, or it might be after that first or second treatment. If we just can't get traction, we can't get it better along that spectrum, then I might say, we could just keep doing treatments and treatments, but it won't be cost effective. It doesn't make sense to keep doing a bunch of treatment if you're not making gains. Which reminds me, I had last week I hunkered down and opened up my YouTube channel. Like, I haven't responded to comments in quite a while.
You haven't posted for a while
I haven't
either.
posted. You're right.
After 6 months, they
but
might
I have, I don't know,
cancel
30 videos or so. So every once in a while, I'll just go through the comments section. That kind of, YouTube Studio will just kind of combine all the comments in there, and I'll just sit down and I'll just kind of respond, almost to everybody. And I mean, that's, as you can imagine, that's a pretty onerous burden when you have a lot of people commenting. But I feel like, I'm not monetizing that. I don't monetize my channel, and I'm not, probably most of these people who comment I'll never see. So it's just kind of a courtesy. They're hungry for information. They might compliment me, or they might ask a specific question. I just feel it's a courtesy to spend a little time doing that. So one comment really stood out. This woman said, I've had a total of, she had treatment elsewhere, YAG laser. I've had a total of 2,800 shots in 8 different sessions, and I haven't noticed any difference. So let that sink in for a moment. The number of shots is
divided by 8. That's not a lot of shots.
Well, that's one comment that I would comment on. It's like, well, that's not a lot of treatment, right? Overall, that's not a lot of treatment. But the more important problem that I have with that is, how did the doctor justify the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th treatment if the patient isn't noticing any improvement? How do you justify that? Now, my philosophy is, my expectation is, that first treatment should be significant and noticeable, enough to say, proof of concept, this works. The gentleman I was just telling you about, the one I just saw, he came back today and he's like, it's 50% better. It's a lot better. Fantastic. Great, let's get in there and do some more, which I did. Now, there are some times where maybe the first treatment isn't all that much, and I might say, let's do, they might push for it, or I might push for it. Let's do a second treatment, and let's see if we can nudge it over that area there. But the first and maybe pushing it, maybe a second treatment should get that person into a point where they're like, okay, it's better, it's significant, it's noticeable. But what if you can't? What if you don't? I don't know how that doctor can justify a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th treatment if you're not getting any improvement, other than maybe they're just billing insurance. It's the old, well, we just need to do more treatment, or you're a slow healer, or it just, We'll just bill the insurance company. And the patient's not going to bitterly complain because they're not even paying a copay many times these days. And so, it's not really any money out of their pockets. They're like, well, I trust my doctor. Maybe I just need more treatment. And I hear stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, God, it's just, this is the problem where there's just no sort of standardization. How would you, the floater sufferer, the consumer who's doing your research, you find somebody in New York, you find somebody not that far from you who's treating floaters. Fantastic. Why would I go all the way to Texas when I can just go across town? I can just take the J train or whatever, So nobody pushes you under the rails.
I'm just kidding. We were talking about people being pushed on the tracks before the recording started. Just kidding.
Nobody pushes you under the rails. Different story. But how do you, the consumer, sort that out? I don't know. I have a video that says choose carefully, and I stand by everything I say in there. And again, I'm not naming any names or saying anybody you shouldn't go to, but I don't know how to promote that. I don't know how to really get that message across without sounding catty and competitive and petty. But I think it really does matter. Like, where you go really, really does matter, at least still while we're in the kind of infancy of the development of this subspecialty, which we still kind of are. Dr. Gelder's been doing this for over 20 years. I've been doing this for over 15 years. That's a long run for doing this thing where we're still kind of working in the shadows. So, there's the technological improvements, there's skill set improvements, and then there's just marketing. Like, how do you get the message across that it may not make sense? And that's just the ineffective treatments, the homeopathic treatments, where there's no harm other than, the insurance company is paying. I guess we're all sort of paying for that, I guess. There is some interesting dynamics in the marketplace, and unfortunately, the floater suffering consumer is the one who has to kind of sort that out and try to make sense of all that. And that's a big burden to put on the patient, because you can't really rely on your local doctor to make a good recommendation or an appropriate recommendation. Generally, as you found out, and which is almost universal, is the doctors are like, oh, well, there's nothing that can be done, or there is this surgery, but you don't want to do that. And the patient might say, well, I found a guy on the internet who treats floaters with a laser. You don't want to do that. I had a patient from the Bay Area, San Francisco, and his doctor was the previous president of the American Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgeons. And he said that to his doctor, like, there's a couple guys I found that treat floaters with a laser. Oh, they should be hanged. No conversation. But this is the problem. This is the problem of a broader problem in the area of science and medicine, which is, ego investment. If you're the doctor or the scientist and your ego is invested in thinking about the way that works a certain way, it's really hard to be academically honest with yourself to say, maybe there's something else that exists outside this rut, this deep groove that I've created for myself. One of my personal interests and passions is nutrition. And I think that doctors, science, the government, nutritionists have completely gotten it wrong over the last 50 years, which was basically avoid fats, eat lots of white and beige carbohydrate foods, lots of fruits and vegetables, eat multiple small meals throughout the day, and by the way, use canola oil because it's heart healthy. It has the American Heart Association stamp of approval, but avoid butter, avoid animal fats, avoid coconut oil, like all these things that are probably healthier oils. And all I have to say is, look what that's done to our society in the last 50 years. All this fantastic advice, people are fatter, metabolically unhealthy, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, they're really unhealthy. And they're being told the same old thing. Diabetics are told, eat small meals of healthy carbohydrates, whole grains, eat them multiple times throughout the day to steady out your glycemic response to that. And my response to that would be like, why are you telling them to eat the carbohydrates? That is the problem of the elevated insulin in the first place. Go keto, go low carb, remove that component to your diet, but eat all the other stuff. And so, science can get it wrong. We can get it wrong. And we can get so into a groove of thinking about the way the world works and the way the body works and the way science works that it is a real intellectual achievement to say, maybe we've been wrong this whole time. I'm not saying there's any vast conspiracy against floater treatment. I'm just saying that we have just kind of gotten into groove of saying that there's nothing that can be done and repeating the same old things. Give it 6 months, your brain will get used to it, all these sort of usual tropes. It's not working.
Yeah, I think that comes from like the past where there was nothing that can
Right.
be done. They didn't
Right.
invent any laser or anything like that back then.
And
then,
yeah,
you know, old doctors become teachers and they teach the young
and they
doctors
teach- but they're
what
teaching the
they
same
know.
thing, yeah.
And that's how it is. You know, same thing with the cholesterol,
But
the statins.
exactly. Oh yeah, statins.
Yeah.
Yeah, same problem. So we like to think that medicine comes from the top down. In other words, the National Institutes of Health, American Academy of Ophthalmology, the journals, the multi-hospital, placebo-controlled big studies and stuff like that, the device manufacturers, pharmaceutical industry. We like to think that that's where medicine advances. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's from the grassroots. You know, it comes from a few outliers, we'll say, not liars, but outliers who sometimes they're liars too. So again, you have to be mindful of that. Where it kind of comes from the grassroots up. For instance, a perfect example is, now in my practice, I'm offering low-dose atropine. It's kind of geared more for the younger patients because they're not really good candidates for treatment with the laser. And, I'd like to say it came from this big study and it was kind of promoted by the American Academy of Ophthalmology and everybody's on board. No, I actually saw it on Reddit, in the iFloater subreddit. Someone had said something like, hey, I've been using low-dose atropine, it's really helped me out. Get it prescribed if you can. And I read that, and
I thought you were reaching for the atropine. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, they're going to show me.
Compared to some of the other things that people will advocate, because anybody can say anything on the internet, and sometimes the discussion forums are just horrible. Facebook discussion forums for floaters is just like some of the worst advice you could possibly imagine. And it'll be things like, fasting or this or that or pineapples or bromelain, and there's all these kind of ideas out there. But I read that and I'm like, dang, that actually makes sense. Like it makes sense from an optic standpoint because patients who are dilated will say, I'm not seeing my floaters. So dilating the pupil has a real known describable optical effect. The pharmacology, the reason we're using atropine and not the tropicamide that we normally use is because it has a longer effect. And the reason we're diluting it, low dose instead of full dose, is we don't want a full dilated pupil because there's light sensitivity and blurred vision. We want a mildly dilated pupil. So I read that, I'm like, that absolutely makes sense. Like, why didn't I think of that? That so makes sense, right? And so I kind of coupled together this Zoom meeting, telemedicine, consultation thing, and started mailing it out to people so that they could at least try it out. So I did it on kind of faith and my understanding of optics and pharmacology, and of course the safety of it. I was very convinced of the safety of it, no harm. And then I started getting feedback from it. And people are like, it's remarkable, like 80, 90% improved, 70% improved, 60% improved, mostly improved. And I was like, there you go. This was totally from grassroots. This was just somebody on Reddit, some stranger on the internet who said, hey, I've been trying this thing. It kind of clicked in my head, and I thought, who better to incorporate it than the floater doctor? Like, it totally makes sense for my practice, because in 15 years, I've had a lot of patients, a lot of younger people sitting in that chair where I've done the examination and just said, I can't treat you, as much as I want to. And there's definitely a financial incentive for me to treat you, but I can't treat you. I have your best interest and ultimately my best interest involved. I cannot treat you with a laser. And I could just watch them just deflate right before my eyes, just sink into like they had built so much hope and faith and optimism on me, but I just can't deliver that. I can't do it for safety reasons, right?
But why though? Why is the young people?
The
not
younger
good
people, the
candidates?
floaters are just generally very, very close to the retina.
Oh,
It's
that's why?
location, location, location. It's like real estate. Their floaters, for various reasons that we don't really fully understand, tend to form these tiny little fibers and stuff, tend to be very, very close to the retina there, and you just can't get them to move away. You can't treat them. They're just too close there. Yeah.
So it's not exactly the age. It's just that
No,
most
it's not
young
the
people.
age. It's just the
I
demographic
see.
association. It's just a truly observational, empirical observation. The floaters and younger people are usually that.
I see.
You get into an older age group, they tend to have the PVDs. They tend to have more comprehensive changes and stuff like that. So it's different with the older age group.
I see. So is it possible to have young people who have the floaters that are present in like your 60-year-old? Have you ever seen a young person come in and you look and say, "Oh my God, look, you may be young, but look at all this I
Yeah.
can deal with."
Yeah.
Did that exist? For
So
you?
I kind of divide people into different age demographics, but there's definitely a crossover. There's an overlap of those curves. So to give numbers, I usually say 30 to 35 and younger is the younger age group. 45 to 50 and older is kind of the older age group, and then there's that kind of middle range group. But those curves definitely cross over. I've seen some people in their 30s and maybe early 40s that have the younger people floaters, and why not? It's the same floaters they've always had. If they can form in younger people, why can't they form in older people? Very rarely, though, will you see like a PVD, which is typically an age-related phenomenon. Very rarely will you see that in a younger person. In fact, I have a video on it. I said, the youngest person I've seen a PVD in was like 31, 32 years old or something like that. I've had a lot of younger people come to me say, "Oh, my doctor told me I have a PVD." And I look in there and like, "No, you haven't. You don't have a PVD." And that is not the patient's fault. That's the problem of, in ophthalmology, we just don't have really good communication and a good language to describe floaters. Some doctors just think if they see a floater, it's a PVD. Well, no, it's not. A PVD is an actual membrane shift and peeling away. I mean, there's like actual anatomical changes that are observable. So, so it's kind of an interesting thing. And I have treated some people as young as their early 20s. They were truly exceptional. I was as surprised as anybody else. I just treated in fact, a doctor down from Austin who's in his mid-late 30s or so, and I saw him in the waiting area, brought him back in here, and had the whole conversation. And I had already prepared my, I can't treat you speech. I have it all prepared. And I looked in there, I'm like, whoa, there's actually a lot of stuff now, like surprisingly a lot of stuff in there. So, given enough of the human population, there's going to be an infinite number of varieties, and there's always going to be a few outliers. There's going to be some younger people that can be treated. There's going to be some older people that can't. But I can still sort of pretty safely pre-categorize people into age demographics. So if I'm talking to somebody over the phone, or now getting messages by email, and if somebody is 22 years old from Israel or 25 years old from India, and they're like, "I want to come to your hospital," first of all, it's not a hospital, but I'll say, the statistical likelihood of me being able to treat you with the laser is not zero, but it's pretty close to that. Maybe the low-dose atropine may be the way to go. Well, I can't mail it out to them. I can't mail the stuff internationally.
Oh, you can't, huh?
No, I can't. Well, I won't.
Okay.
Because I don't. What I don't want is I don't want some customs official to open it up and say, "Well, this is a pharmaceutical." It's like, this is not a pharmacy. So I don't want to, raise any eyebrows or get in trouble. So I feel more comfortable staying nationally. But for those people, I'll provide them a white paper that kind of describes what I'm doing and the reasoning behind the low dose. So they could conceivably get it from their doctor and have it prescribed. So they can still benefit from that. But I just feel like I don't want to be luring, with the cost and the expense and coming from internationally or even from other states. I just want to manage those expectations appropriately. But I do say, hey, if you happen to be passing through, you're passing through Dallas-Fort Worth, you want to come and see me, be glad to see you. I'm not refusing seeing you. I'm just helping manage those expectations from the very first interaction. Don't be the guy that's luring people in and taking advantage of their desperation. And some people are very desperate. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. In fact, it's always better to underpromise and hopefully overdeliver whenever you can. And that's just good business, right?
Alright guys, so that's it for part 1 of the series. Now, coming soon is part 2, where he does an educational lecture all about your eyeball and floaters and things like that. Everything you need to know. So stay tuned for part 2.